That process looks so much less appealing than this process here, where you're literally staying liquid, you're staying in the crypto ecosystem, you're maintaining your original XRP position, which you worked your ass off to accumulate, and you're earning yield on it, and you're earning yield on the house that you bought with your XRP.
Key takeaways. Number one, DeFi in one form or the other is here to stay. Might change, might look different. There might be financial institutions involved because there is a place for them, but it's definitely here to stay. It's not going to go away. Number two.
In today's video breakdown, we're really going to dive down the rabbit hole and start to really fix our mindsets towards this new digitally native future that we're headed into. And we're going to really try to get past the annotation that selling our digital assets for some high-end fiat price is the key or the only path towards success. Now, right off the bat, before we jump and dive into today's detailed video breakdown, as I mentioned, I'd like to have open discussion. Once we get to that part and we start to talk about these strategies and what we're going to be doing and participating in the future, how we can preserve our wealth, maintain liquidity exposure in this market while not having to sell our digital assets and keep ourselves in the crypto ecosystem, right? We've worked so hard to enter into the space and to get away from traditional finance. And so many people have this mindset still that is outdated, in my opinion, that's from 2021 and before, that they're going to sell for fiat and make it successfully, considering that everything is transitioning and coming on chain, and that fiat in the traditional financial system is dying and decaying. It's a mindset shift that you really have to commit yourself to through educational practices, joining like-minded communities like the one that we have built here in the CYPRX community, or just doing your own personal research. It does take time. It is scary at first, especially when you don't know what you're doing. But as you become more financially illiterate, you practice, you take a couple of L's because you are going to have to lose in this game, unfortunately, whether they're big losses or small losses. It's a part of the game. And you're going to have to get your feet wet. And once you do that and you become more aware, you become more wise in this space, you become more effective and efficient, the fear kind of fades into the background and you really have this aha moment. And so that's what I want to really prep today's call with and really go into detail and talk about this. So can you guys see my screen? Generally speaking, you guys can see. Okay, sweet. So I'm
Yep.
just going to start here, right? So there is this quote right now floating around on the internet, and I blocked out and redacted the name to make sure that nobody thinks that I'm attacking individuals on the internet because this person that posted this, I actually really do like this gentleman's content, and I actually like some of the things that he says, but I just, I got to play the devil's advocate, and I have to show people that even some of these influencers lack literacy, lack financial literacy in the space, and they're not adapting and changing with the moving tides. And it actually shows in the views of these panel discussions that I'm going to show you guys today. It shows in the lack of them participating in the DeFi ecosystem and not understanding what is available to us right now as a retail investor operating on a level playing field with institutions, with digital assets that otherwise were blocked off from the DeFi ecosystem, especially like the XRP community. The XRP community, I'd say like 80 to 90% of them are just blindsided by what's happening right now with DeFi on the XRPL. And here in this community, we're at the forefront of that. So there's this quote right now floating around the internet that says, if you don't have an exit strategy, your exit liquidity. And here it is right here in the Discord. Like I said, I redacted this individual's name, not to attack or, go against this person's content creation, but I just don't agree with this, right? If you don't have an exit strategy or exit liquidity, and this can fall into so many categories. So eventually we'll get to talking about exit strategy, or not necessarily exit strategies, but how we can preserve our wealth once price appreciation does come, and stay in this game. Stay in this game. If you have plans to buy a house, right? For example, you don't have to sell XRP when it hits $1,000 to go out and buy that to go out and buy that house with fiat that you sold your XRP for. You can instead borrow against your XRP by lending it out, borrowing against it, earning yield on that XRP while it's lent out, pay back your loan, buy your house with that loan and that borrowed liquidity, And then once you pay back your loan, your XRP position will actually be worth more money because the whole entire time you were earning yield on it while it was lent out, right? So we'll get to that portion of today's video breakdown. But again, this requires a mindset shift that a lot of people don't understand and haven't come to terms with, okay? So back to this opening statement. And while that might sound smart and even go viral, let's be honest, it reflects an old school way of thinking that's quickly becoming obsolete. Too many people still believe that the only way to win in crypto is to sell everything when their chosen token hits some dreamy target, $10, $100, $1,000, or whatever figure they've got on their vision board. But what they don't realize is that this kind of thinking mirrors a fiat trap. Profit chasing rooted in a system where selling is your only way to secure gains. Let's be clear. You can sell your crypto if you want to, but do you have to? Not anymore. And I want to pause right there. I want everybody to know that I believe full transparency in selling out of your initial investment to break even or create a risk-free environment for yourself. I personally have done that recently, not in recent times, not this year, but last year, when we saw the market pump in November, I actually sold some of my positions so that way I broke even, right? If I initially had put $20,000 into XRP when it was trading below 11 cents, selling $20,000 worth of my position to pay myself and get out of my initial investment is something that I've already done. So I mean, I'm not giving you guys financial advice, but if you are going to sell for fiat, at least do that, right? I am a firm advocate of promoting that, right? Breaking even, creating a risk-free environment for yourself and taking your initial investment off the table. But anything after that, in my personal opinion, selling for fiat, it's not a good idea. And this is, again, just my personal opinion, not financial advice. And it's not a good idea because of what we are about to have exposure to, especially for digital assets like XRP and many others, right? So let's be clear. So like I said, you can sell your crypto if you want, but do you have to? Not anymore. There is a better way, a more strategic, wealth-preserving, and wealth-generating path that most influencers are not talking about. Okay, I'd say that out of all the influencers out there, us here at CYPRX and maybe two or three others are really the only ones talking about strategic DeFi positioning in this ecosystem right now. Okay, this path involves not selling your crypto, but instead putting it to work. The new wealth strategy is use, don't lose your assets. Instead of exiting into fiat, which loses value every single year due to inflation, you can use DeFi protocols to lend, to yield farm, and to liquid stake your assets. So let's break this down in detail. Before we do that, though, I want to show you guys an organization with valid credentials putting out recent information that shows that these even influencers and most people don't have any idea generically what they're speaking about. Okay, so if we come over here, this is the Canadian Blockchain Consortium, and you can go over here and you can just see, who are some of the members. Very highly reputable organizations, some of which you most likely know, like XDC Network here. If you come right down here, you got KPMG, Deloitte, major consulting firms, Accenture here on this list, right? And the list goes on, just to show you guys a few. Okay, this is a credible organization, and they put out this recent document. This is a white paper titled From Chaos to Clarity, Canada's Blueprint for a Trusted and Competitive Digital Future. And the reason why I said this here is because here at CYPRX, right, we directly addressed these exact issues that this document was talking about. So in this document, you can see here in the screenshots that I fed to ChatGPT, it's specifically saying, despite growing awareness of cryptocurrencies and blockchain tech, a significant trust gap persists between the public and digital assets in the industry. This disconnect is shaped by a combination of limiting financial literacy, a lack of practical knowledge about how the industry functions, and deeply ingrained trust in traditional financial institutions. The general public continues to have a limited understanding of how digital assets work, including how to buy, sell, or securely invest in them. Terms such as blockchain, DeFi, and stablecoins remain relatively elusive to most retail investors in this space. Also, crypto wallets remain unclear to many individuals. This knowledge gap fuels uncertainty and, in some cases, fear. It is compounded by the fact that much of the information available to the public comes from and within the digital asset ecosystem itself, from exchanges, from influencers, and startups, rather than from established, neutral institutions. Recent surveys indicate, and this is a Canadian percentage, it says recent surveys indicate that only 30% of Canadians feel confident in their financial literacy skills. And so here in this community, right, I said here, CYPRX directly addresses this exact issue in the following ways. The first one is bridging the trust gap between credible information and non-credible information from influencers, from within inside the system, from within inside the Web3 ecosystem, so on and so forth. So again, this report says much of the information available to the public comes from within the digital asset ecosystem itself rather than from established trusted institutions. CyberX flips this narrative as we source and share information directly from globally trusted financial institutions, regulators, and research-backed frameworks. Okay. And so in today's video breakdown, I want to show you guys that this mindset shift is not just coming from retail investors. This is not me as an influencer telling you guys that this shift is happening. It is happening right now. So before we dive into today's video breakdown and I show you guys some of the different ways that we can kind of shift our mindset from this profit-taking, sell for fiat mentality that most people still have to strategically investing in DeFi and growing our bags, paying ourselves passive rewards, and talking thoroughly through some of these strategies that we have now available to us, I want to show you guys the systemically important groups are telling you guys that this is to be the case. So the first video that I'm going to play is from a Bank of International Settlements panel discussion that took place with this gentleman on stage at roughly about an hour into this conference, which is 8 hours long. And he goes on to talk about how we are going to have the ability to participate in liquidity pools. So just take a second here and listen to what this guy says.
People can actually provide liquidity. That's the other part. It's not that there's just some tokens magically on there, but anyone can provide liquidity to that decentralized exchange. Anyone can add X and Y tokens in the same proportion and become a liquidity provider. And the question is, why would they do that? And there is one simple answer. Of course, there's a fee involved. When somebody swaps with the smart contract, with this exchange, then there is a fee accumulation, and people will get a proportion of that fee when they are holding these liquidity provision tokens. Okay? So what do you end up with? A completely decentralized exchange with no dependencies whatsoever, with an indulgence pricing mechanism, just a smart contract that creates billions of US dollars daily, just with infrastructure. No employees, no way to stop it, no special privileges, and that is extremely exciting.
And this is again coming from a BIS panel discussion. Now, he also, at the end of his presentation, mentions that DeFi is here to stay. Take a second here and just listen to this, which will just build confidence because, again, remember, retail investors, most influencers, and most information in the crypto space is rooted in fear. It's rooted in a fear-based approach, yet the people that actually matter sitting at the head and the top of the pyramid, or at least the second layer of the top of the pyramid, presenting information to these central bankers are the ones telling us that DeFi is here to stay. So we should not fear it. And instead, we should further our education in the space to expand our horizon. Listen to what he says here.
Centralized. And I also hope that we can focus on some of the benefits and not only the risks, because I think this has a lot of benefits, is actually extremely exciting. Key takeaways. Number one, DeFi in one form or the other is here to stay. Might change, might look different. There might be financial institutions involved because there is a place for them, but it's definitely here to stay. It's not going to go away.
So I just wanted you guys to hear that, right? He talks about DeFi being here to stay, financial institutions getting involved. Now, that takes me over to two more video breakdowns to show you guys physical, credible proof that this is happening. And for the first time ever, this year, financial institutions have publicly announced that they are getting involved in DeFi. This is a recent panel discussion from 6 days ago from the Defiant. Shout out to the Defiant YouTube channel with only 648 views, which proves what I'm trying to tell you guys, that these people, the retail herd, influencers alike, are not watching this content. Okay, this video was shared by one of our CYPRX researchers. Listen to what Sandy from Franklin Templeton here says about how they're excited about becoming liquidity providers, lending and borrowing protocols, and how they think it's going to be an important part of this new financial ecosystem.
Lending vault, and KYC vault. What do you think of that space? Is it? I know it's like very early, but is that something that you'd explore, or what's missing for you to use it?
100%. We're super excited about this space. We're just waiting for the regulators to give us a little more clarity on how they want us to treat a registered product in these pools, right? So we're very big believers in liquidity pools. We believe that liquidity pools are going to be a standard part of the future ecosystem. We're very interested in lending protocols and being able to incorporate our Benji product suite into lending protocols as an option other than stablecoins for that reason that we were talking about before, the higher yield, the more stability around the underlying collateral, the higher transparency and third-party custody that they provide.
Right. So again, individual representative from a credible institution saying that they are excited for liquidity pools. And so just again, to back my claim, let's transition out of this fear-based mindset and enter into this age of information that is relatively shadow banned and doesn't really get projected to the masses. We have access to that here in CYPRX. Last but not least, this is a Ship or Die Accelerate conference that was hosted by Solana that just recently took place 4 weeks ago. This video only has 386 views, and they actually made a historical announcement at this event, where for the first time ever, the individual co-founder of Drift announced in collaboration with Securitize and Apollo the first looping strategy available to retail institutions, or sorry, excuse me, available to institutions and retail, where institutions can go and participate in looping strategies, lending out their assets, and getting in return a liquid stake token version of that and participating in different yield bearing strategies, earning up to 17% on their assets, which is huge because that just confirms double-digit yield, where we in this community have been very headstrong about trying to figure out if these high-end yields are going to stay long-term. Are we going to get 5%, 10%, 20%, whatever? And they announced here on stage for the first time ever that institutions can earn 17% with their Solana through this looping mechanism. This is crazy, in my personal opinion. So just listen to these two video clips real fast.
Thank you so much, Nick, for also being the one bringing all of us here together. It's been a pleasure working with the both of you on bringing Xrpl to Solana for the first time.
Absolutely.
So today is actually a very historic moment. Today is the day that Apollo's flagship credit fund is now live and tokenized on Solana via Securitize. So it's the first time ever that an asset like private credit has been publicly available on a permissionless blockchain. And we're also very excited as the founder of Drift to announce that we have launched a leverage strategy that boosts private credit yield from 9% to up to 17%. So let's dig into that. Reed, tell me about the process of what Xrpl looks like. Why are you so excited by it? And, how can users? Absolutely. And that is exactly the vision of early Solana. That is the vision of why we built a capital efficient DeFi platform, because we believe that all assets are eventually going to be used on the most capital efficient and programmable chain where they can actually coexist next to each other. We're just seeing the start of this now with a single private credit looping strategy. From DeFi terms, it's actually a very simple LST looping strategies, right? Like, how many of you guys in the room loop your SOL LSTs in DeFi? I'm sure, a lot of you are familiar with this strategy. Now imagine doing this with private credit. Imagine using your SOL LST to borrow stablecoins and invest into Christine's incredible private credit strategies. And that actually offers a differentiated source of yield that matches your crypto portfolio and gives you a fully diversified portfolio that doesn't only rely on crypto native yield. So
all right, so you guys kind of get the picture. I just want to always show physical proof from people with valid credentials in the space that what I'm trying to preach to you guys is happening for the first time in history. So of course, most influencers that have been in the space for years have no idea this is happening because they're still so fixated on the previous mindset that has helped them boost engagement on their platforms for so many years before. Well, this is all happening for the first time in history. So if their algorithm isn't tweaked to this kind of stuff, they're going to miss it. It's going to go right over their head, which is exactly what is happening. Okay. So to continue down this rabbit hole and go over some of these strategies that we can participate in, instead of exiting into fiat here, which loses value every single year due to inflation, you can use DeFi protocols to lend, yield farm, and liquid stake your assets. So let's break this down. I want to start with lending and borrowing, or spend without selling your assets. Okay. And the reason why I want to start here Actually, Ruby just posted this in the chat. This is from Jack Rippler. I don't mind exposing this person because I think this person is shite in the industry for influencer. But, they went to say, are you ready for this? And they put a house behind this and put for sale and that it's going to cost 100 XRP. Why on earth would you buy this house for 100 XRP if this house, which is right next to the beach, I'm going to go ahead and imagine a house like this in Florida or in Malibu, California would be in the millions worth of dollars. Would you sell 100 XRP to purchase this house when instead you can go lend out 100 XRP, borrow against that XRP to then purchase the house, pay back your XRP loan at a very small interest rate while at the same time accumulating yield on that lent out XRP. So that way, when you eventually pay back the loan, the lent out XRP that you originally lent is worth more money because the whole entire time it was accruing yield, right? This is a perfect example of influencers who are steering the herd in the wrong direction through simple infographics, through misunderstandings and misinformation, because they've been in this game for quite a while and they have an audience. As you can see, this post has 54,000 impressions. So let's just assume that 1,000 people out of this that are involved in crypto have this now mindset that they're going to be able to sell their XRP for fiat and buy some house. They're going to get wrecked, right? They're going to get wrecked, getting stuck back in the traditional system, where inversely, you could participate in this first strategy that we're going to talk about, right? So let's break this down. Imagine you hold a significant amount of XRP or ETH or any other digital asset and you're eyeing a new house or a car. Most people would sell their crypto, take the fiat, and go make the purchase. But there's the DeFi native way. You can lend your XRP or whatever digital asset floats your boat on a decentralized platform like Aave, Compound, MetalX, or platforms built recently on the Xrpl like Xrpl Finance, which we'll get into in just one second. You can earn yield on your lent assets, meaning your bags grow while just sitting there. And then you can borrow against your lent assets to get USDC or another stablecoin or another digital asset to go fund your purchase. You still own your original crypto, which keeps earning yield while your loan gets paid back over time at a very small interest rate percentage, which I'll have Aqua cover when he talks about MetalX as an example. And once it's repaid, you've still got all of your original asset keeping you in the crypto ecosystem, i.e., remaining in this new digitally native infrastructure, which means which may have appreciated in value as well. So, right, let's say, for example, XRP, when you lent it out, was $10 and it takes you 3 years to pay back that loan. And when you finally pay back that loan, which again, you're only paying back on the original loan value, your XRP is worth $100. So you also benefit from price appreciation, plus all the yield that that position generates for you over those 3 years. You do not need to sell your winning asset to enjoy the rewards. That's how institutions and the ultra wealthy operate, and now you can too. So before I let Aqua and Kev talk about this in detail, if you guys want to bring anything to the table, I want to show you guys that this is all happening. This is from 2 days ago, directly from Xrpl Finance, where they posted this Medium article, and I'm just going to read one simple highlight. It says, in order to make this yield possible, we will be allowing users to deposit XRP amongst a select of assets, amongst a select collection of assets, including USDC, USDT, and ETH. And in return, those users will be able to earn interest for lending their assets on Xrpl's money market. Borrowers can then take out an over-collateralized loan against their deposited assets, unlocking liquidity without being forced to sell their holdings. Okay? I'm just going to go ahead and assume outright that probably 98% of community members in the XRP community have no idea what Xrpl Finance is. Because if you go to Xrpl Finance and you look at their Twitter following, it's like 3,000 people. Whereas if you go to Ripple or you go to the XRPL Commons X profile, they have hundreds of thousands of followers. So nobody's paying attention to this stuff yet. I'll leave it there. I'll let the floor breathe. Aqua, Kev, if you guys have anything to say on this, you're more than welcome to chime in.
Go ahead, Kevin.
All right. So basically, I mean, when I read that comment about, being exit liquidity, to me, that's just a, narrow-minded thinking, because you must not know about DeFi and the borrowing and lending that you can do to protect yourself. And, there's also safe avenues and strategies that you can do that would also keep you from being liquidated. So, like, I don't understand when people say things like that. But to what Cypress was saying, like I'm even right now, I'm using Aave right now. Like during this call, I'm my borrow is in Ethereum, so I'm literally watching Ethereum tank right now, and I'm watching my debt shrink and my health score get way better and healthier as the market dumps, and I'm saving. I must have saved about like $700 just now, just since this call started. So like this is the type of things that you can do with your DeFi and your capital and increase your bag holdings while the market's deteriorating. And then once we get like a shift in sentiment, you just switch back bullish. But this time you have so much more capital that you've saved down this downturn. So I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go by this. Cypress and Aquaman, like we all know, like you just catch it in waves. You know what I mean? Like you go down, you earn some, and you buy the assets that you need, and then when you get ready to take off, you just go. You just switch.
Yeah, and I think the most important part of this is that everybody in this community has access to you to learn that strategy, so they choose to proceed
Yeah.
proceed with that process, right? And I mean, I think, like I said, that that's powerful because we are part of a very small percentage of people that are gaining the upper hand. Because most people, they're not going to learn these things for another 2 or 3 years. When by that time, all of these assets will most likely, again, if so we choose the right ones, will have appreciated in value. So we're going to benefit from the price appreciation. And while everybody else is just for the first time ever figuring out DeFi because they weren't paying attention to the right influencers and instead were getting distracted, they're going to sell for fiat after this next massive cycle. And they're going to think that price action after the institutions come in is going to give them some deliverable pullback price that they can enter in, right? Like, for example, anybody that thinks that once this market is worth 10, 15 trillion dollars, that we're going to see the market back at 2 or 3 trillion dollars, that's a delusional way of thinking.
But I think that's a fact of the market because it is primarily retail driven now. And the other big thing everybody talks about is the institutions coming. And institutions aren't going to behave like retail investors. So I think that when you're creating a trading strategy, an investment strategy, you want to be focused on how the market is going to evolve, not exactly how it's been. How it's been, coincidentally, has not been around for very long. You know, you're working off of 5 to 10 years of good data. So I think you can't just take what has happened in a retail that's been driven by, in a market that's been driven by retail, and expect that once it matures and institutions get involved, that it's going to behave the same. So I think that, you know, just following the hype, just looking at narrative, I don't think that's a sustainable source of alpha. Just to be, you know, sniping the next big narrative strategy, you want to be focused on how the market is going to evolve, not exactly how it's been. How it's been, coincidentally, has not been around for very long. You know, you're working off of 5 to 10 years of good data. So I think you can't just take what has happened in a retail that's been driven by, in a market that's been driven by retail, and expect that once it matures and institutions get involved, that it's going to behave the same.
That's such a speculative way of thinking instead of thinking, I'm going to preserve my wealth, maintain my position in the crypto ecosystem. And if I want something nice, or if I want money, or if I want fiat, stable coins, if I want cash, I can just lend out the assets that I work so hard to accumulate and borrow against them and pay myself or participate in some of these other strategies that we're going to talk about. Aqua, go ahead.
Yeah, can you bring up that strategy that you had that you were sharing on the screen? I just want to add to the end of it, because what you broke down is very, very powerful, and more people need to understand this breakdown. But to put the cherry on top of this whole strategy, because you borrowed against your XRP and you paid off the
Yo,
house. So I just want to make sure we're clear. So you borrowed against the XRP, you bought the house. The house is paid for technically because you bought it with the loan, right? But you still owe the money back on the loan that you borrowed against your XRP. Now, you could pay it back with, you know, your 9 to 5 or whatever type of cash flow you have coming in. Or there's another option that DeFi allows us to run, which is you can now tokenize your house. So because the house is paid in full, you can technically tap into the entirety of all the equity of the house, which is the entire value of the house. And mature people would look at that and say, dang, all right, instead of my liquidity just sitting here not doing anything, let me go earn yield with that liquidity and pay this loan back. So, and for those people that, you know, would say, oh, they're a naysayer to that, I mean, you're naysaying to it because this is something brand new that's never ever happened. But you got people like Sergey, I'm forgetting his last name, but the co-founder of Chainlink, who said that this scenario that I gave you guys is very well possible. And when you look at platforms like Lofty, that gives us that ability, and they are following the rules and the laws. They're doing it in a special way right now as we wait for regulations in the entire United States. But they're, you know, they're running this, you know, this tokenization of real estate out of the state of Wyoming because the state of Wyoming is already legalized to tokenize real estate. So they found a loophole to go through the state of Wyoming. But I mean, don't just take my word for it. Go take a look at Lofty yourself. And when you know, come back to maybe this video and re-listen to this strategy, and then you actually see it for yourself, it's going to just make 100% sense. And like, that is a real strategy. That is a real strategy that I plan on running, you know, in the future. So, you know, I mean, why would you just let your equity sit there? And the old fashioned way to tap into that equity, you got to call the bank. You got to run your credit. You got to make sure you get approved. And then they're going to charge you an interest rate on the equity of your house, which makes no sense. This, I paid for this equity, and you're going to charge me money on borrowing against my own equity? 0 cents. But DeFi is changing the game. It's leveling the playing field. It's giving, you know, the power back to the people that understand this stuff. And there needs to be more people that understand. Like, your digital asset can be earning you yield. And if real world assets are coming to the game, that too can earn you yield because it's liquidity. So that's my talk.
Okay, sweet. So I want to just kind of make like an infographic so people can understand kind of what you were just saying through a visual perspective. So I'm kind of just building it out here, right? And so we'll do this together, right? Because I think that visual representations of what we're talking about are important because that's a lot of people click better with pictures. So, you know, just starting here on this lending platform. And again, we're not sitting here saying that any lending platforms right now are secure. There's stroke finance being built out. MetalX right now has the ability for you to lend out your assets like XRP. And I just, you know, randomly pick 3% because that's a small, realistic amount that I think is going to be plausible in the future. Okay. And so let's think about this process and look at how much more sense it makes compared to the original outdated traditional financial system, or even just selling your assets for fiat and then taking that fiat and buying your house with your sold XRP that you sold for fiat, right? So in this scenario, you would take your XRP to this lending platform, you would deposit it, lend it, borrow against it, and get in return USDC. And you know, some lending platforms like Aave have an exceptional amount of lending capability where you can lend, I think, up to 85%, right, Kev, of your assets, of your overall lent out assets, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then so let's say you then go take that lent out asset that you borrowed against and you get USDC. And like Aqua was saying, you go and you buy this house. So here's this is the house right here. And it's paid off like Aqua was saying. Then to pay back the loan, so let's do another marker here because you got to pay back the loan. So we're going to make a marker here. To pay back this loan, if you don't want to use your hard-earned income, what you can do is you can take your house. You can go on a platform like Prisco. What's that platform that was built on the XRPL where right now in Dubai you can tokenize real estate just like on Lofty, right? I don't
Yeah,
remember what it's called.
it's like PYRI or something like that. It was like a 5-letter word or something like that. But
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's like Pripco or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
you can tokenize your paid off real estate property. Okay, so now let's say that now you've then taken this house, this paid off house, and you've tokenized it. So we'll add a layer of tokenization to this. We'll put tokenized, and then we'll also put you're earning, I don't know, 6%. You're earning 6% now on this property. We'll make this bigger. So think about this, y'all. You're earning 6% on this property. You can take, because what is the lending? What's the interest rate right now on the Metal X DEX? It's like 0.001 or something crazy like that, right? It's like something
Yeah, it's
minuscule,
right now it's 0.042 to pay it back.
right?
Um which is that's pennies, and then usually sometimes it'll throttle all the way down to where there's like a couple zeros in front of it. So I mean, when it all averages out, it's probably going to be like a sliver of a percent, 0.01% type of thing.
Okay,
So
sweet. So let's end this infograph right here and show you how much more sense it makes to do this. And again, this is not financial advice. This is just an example. Instead of thinking with the old outdated mindset, you're going to make, let's say, okay, so it's point whatever sliver of a percent. Let's just make an example and say it's 0.001%. So out of this 6%, keep in mind you have to pay back this loan over here that you originally used lending out your XRP and borrowing USDC against. Well, guess what? Right here with, let's say let's even just make it you have to pay 0.1% or 1% back of your original loan, which is not the case. It's a lot lower, but just as an example. That means in your pocket from this right here, you're going to be making.
Yo, Cypress, give the house a number. Like how much was the house that now is liquidity that we're playing with? Like,
I don't know, let's say $300,000.
all right, 300,000. Yep. So now we have $300,000 of liquidity tokenized that we can tap into. 300K.
Okay. So here you're going to be making 6% or let's say 5% on this $300,000 house. So we'll put 5% here. That's going to go in your pocket. Keep in mind the whole entire time, y'all, you're earning 3% on this initial XRP. So now you're making 8% on this whole entire process. Okay. You're making 8%. And then here into your pocket, this money, or let's say 1%, is going to go back to paying the loan, right? Because this is money that you have to use to pay back the loan. This is exactly what Aqua's talking about. This is now going to go back to paying the loan, and you're going to profit from this because the interest rates to pay back these loans are low. You're also earning 3% on your initial lent out XRP, which you never had to sell for fiat. You borrowed USDC against it, bought this house, tokenized the house, earning 6% on it, and that's minuscule. I think we're going to be able to earn upwards of, go ahead.
I was going to say, I would even put a solid 15% right there. You just played a video of them saying we're going to be able to get double-digit yield.
Yeah,
so
I just like the low ball to make people see how crazy this is. I'll let you go in a second here, Rob, but you guys kind of can see, right? So now if you were to put a traditional process up here, right? Let's say somebody up here, and I'm just going to use the drawing tool. So they start with XRP, right? They start with XRP. XRP goes to $100 or whatever, right? We'll put $100. They then sell that for USDC, or let's just put US dollar. And then they go and they buy a house with it. Okay. That process looks so much less appealing than this process here, where you're literally staying liquid. You're staying in the crypto ecosystem. You're maintaining your original XRP position, which you worked your ass off to accumulate, and you're earning yield on it, and you're earning yield on the house that you bought with your XRP that you worked hard for. Like, I don't know how people don't see this. And I know that this is like this is like a fifth grade drawing. I know that there's so many more minute details that could go into this, but this is just a broad overview. Go ahead, Rob. We'll let you have the floor real quick.
I was just thinking with that concept, you can actually turn the house into rental, so you get rental income, and plus you get yield on tokenizing it.
You can add an extra layer, like maybe putting it on Airbnb or something, having physical tenants while you're also earning tokenized rewards on it. That's another that's
100%.
That's why it's important to be part of this community, because I can guarantee you that in the next 5 years, somebody in this community is going to commit themselves to this type of strategy. And guess what we're going to be able to do from that person? Have them on a Zoom call and learn their ways, pick their brain, go through the trials and tribulations that they went through, experiencing this process firsthand, the things that they learned, the things that they did to go around certain things, or mistakes that they might have made that they would do better. And that's how we're going to prosper. Go ahead, Aqua.
Yeah, I mean, like this should be juicy for real estate investors. Like most real estate investors that are tapped into the old-fashioned ways, they can't tap into that equity liquidity. With this new way of tokenization, like these real estate investors, if they're smart and they're hip to this, they could really, really just like catapult ahead of everybody. You know what I mean? That's in real estate investing. But like this is so powerful. But I know D'Angelo wants to say something. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, this is great. I think the thing that people don't understand is liabilities. And the more you like, if you buy something, you sell out of these assets and you buy it from the profits that you made. I don't think people really understand the amount of liabilities that's going to come up afterwards and the amount of cash that you're going to lose. Like you're buying a new car and cool, it's a fast car, nice car, Lamborghini, whatever it is, and then don't know what the monthly payments is going to come up afterwards. And so if you really got to keep the cash, working unless, you're going to fall.
The name of the game is cash flow, right? And, liabilities, things that pretty much in a nutshell cost you money, to sum up the definition in a nutshell, right? Um, if what D'Angelo was saying, you buy a nice fancy car. Well, guess what? If for a Lamborghini, I mean, I didn't own a Lamborghini, but in 2020, when I made my first profitable withdrawal, I went out and bought a $70,000 Corvette. I got pictures and stamps to prove it. I paid for it freaking cash. But then guess what? I thought I was all cool because I had a nice, little tiny Corvette. But then my freaking insurance every single month was like 400 bucks. And then on top of that, to go get an oil change on a brand new, nice ass, drawn out Corvette is like 150 bucks every single time. If I blew a tire, it'd be like 300 bucks to go and do that. So like D'Angelo was saying, all these purchases, if you don't find ways to turn them into assets, they're just going to become liabilities in your portfolio or on your balance sheet, so to call it. And that is the dying way of how most people that become crypto millionaires are going to actually lose most of their crypto millions. And they don't even realize it because they're still stuck in this, oh, because I made $10 million off of investing $100,000 into XRP 5 years ago, I'm going to maintain and keep all that. When in reality, if they sell for fiat, not only is that fiat going to continue to depreciate at a rapid pace every single year as governments print more money and as inflation continues to rise, but they're most likely going to buy things that, like D'Angelo was saying, come with a lot of responsibility and liabilities, right? So, like I see all the time, all these influencers on the internet say, I'm going to go buy a yacht, right? Trust and believe, I know people that own yachts. I know a dude right now that has a yacht business and he's like trying to get out of it. Why? Because every single yacht that he has to have like 3 different insurances for it. He also has to pay for parking for that yacht at some of the most expensive docks on the face of this planet. Because in the United States, right, if you like, let's say, live in Miami, to pay for your yacht to be parked in a fucking dock in Miami is like $5,000 a month type shit. So you have to think of all these extra things, right? That come with all these physical, materialistic, tangible things that people want, that they gravitate towards in Twitter and on X, because the way that we've been led to believe is freedom and financial success is materialism and instant gratification. That if you're playing that game right now in crypto, telling you guys, we gotta work as a community to flip this mindset. And this might not be the strategy that you participate in. There's many others that we can get into, which we're going to here in just a second. Well, 2 others, but this is just one. So let's move on so this doesn't drag out. The second one, yield farming. Now, personally, with this one, I think that this one is more of like a riskier, high risk play here because you're exposing yourself to impermanent loss, right? Yield farming, being a liquidity provider, so on and so forth. There's a lot more hands-on mechanics here to this type of strategy, but let's go on to this. So too many people treat XRP or any token like a lottery ticket. I'll sell it when it hits $10. I'll sell it when it hits $100 or whatever the case may be. But why sell an appreciating asset, which we all most likely know, again, it's not guaranteed, but we all most likely know it's going to appreciate against a devaluating currency, which is the US dollar or any other fiat currency, whatever jurisdiction you're from. You go look at XRP and it is more right now than the United States dollar. It's more than a Canadian dollar. It's more than the Great British Pound. It's more than the euro. It's more than the Australian dollar. Nobody can deny that. And so with that being said, we can assume based off of historical data that that theme is going to continue over time. To what level it's going to do, we don't know that. But we know because of the way that they print fiat and inflation, all those things, it's most likely going to appreciate against fiat currencies. So why sell an appreciating asset when you can use it to pay yourself forever? So if you want fiat, if you want the dead decaying system's money, You don't have to sell your XRP. You can just go out and provide yield with it. You can go out and provide liquidity with it, excuse me. You can yield farm that asset and just pay yourself with that passive income. So, different platforms that offer yield strategies, you don't have to wait for some top to exit. You can literally just generate yield, reinvest that if you want to compound that over time. Think of it this way: instead of spending your XRP, let your XRP pay you. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't understand. We have the possibility to do now with, assets like F assets and the Flare ecosystem and everything that's happening over there on Flare, right? Aqua Kev, did you have anything to say on this?
No, I think we need to create like some sort of acronym though. Like I'm thinking of one right now because so many people they're not understanding that you definitely need to sell but buy back in for the yield or for DeFi. I don't know. I was thinking about sell, buy back, yield, like SBuy, the SBuy strategy, because I feel like it goes over people's heads. People, you know what I mean? I don't want people to like get caught not taking profits and then they just ride it all the way up and then ride it all the way down. At some point, you got to secure profits. But what we're saying here, what we're preaching is don't take it and turn it into fiat. Have a strategy to buy back into that asset to now make that XRP work for you. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Or if you are going to sell, right? If you are going to sell, let's say for fiat or US dollar, Australian dollar, or whatever the case may be, start to look into stable coins that can generate you passive rewards as well, where you can start to earn 6%, 7%, or even become a liquidity provider. So like, let's say, for example, you do sell your XRP position once it hits $1,000, because again, I want everybody to know that I'm not against people selling when you're in profit. I agree with Aqua. If you're in profit, take some partials, take some profit, right? That's what we invest for. That's why we're all here, to make money. So when you make money, when you do sell, have a plan with that money and you can go and park that. So let's say, for example, again, hypothetical numbers. Let's say you invested $10,000 in XRP and in the future it becomes 1 million. Well, instead of once you sell that $1 million, just going out and spending that $1 million, you can take that $1 million and you can go and park it in a yield bearing strategy or a yield bearing platform or into a liquidity pool that's offering you 10%, 17%, 5% even on $1 million is a lot of money annually, right? So figure out how to stay in the system, remain liquid, and expose yourself to yield generation so that way your wealth continues to grow and you're not spending your assets or your money, excuse me, and your money turns into a liability instead of an asset, right? Okay, so let's go on to the last one. All right, this is one of my most favorite ones here. And in my personal opinion, because I don't really like the idea of having to pay back a loan, the one that I'm probably going to participate in the most in the near future, right? Near future being 2 years to 5 years out. And that is liquid staking. Okay. Liquid staking takes it a step further. Instead of locking up your assets, you stake them and receive liquid representation tokens in return, like STXRP as an example. You can then, with that liquid stake token, use the stake token to trade, spend if you want to, or earn more additional yield in DeFi, like the lady from Drift was saying at the beginning of this call. You can even swap it into USDC and you can buy yourself something without touching, excuse me, your original XRP holdings. You can still earn staking rewards on your underlying asset the whole entire time. This is what traditional finance wishes it could offer. It is. But with DeFi, you now have the tools to spend, to earn, and to grow your wealth without ever exiting your position. And that is the important thing here. Okay. Garnishing the idea and the mindset that you do not have to exit out of the crypto ecosystem. That's what's going to get the most people wrecked. Is think about it. Everything's coming on chain. Why on earth would you work this hard to build up this on-chain portfolio to then in the future, once everything's on chain, get out of the on-chain ecosystem? It makes zero sense. And that is where right now we are in this mindset transformation where that's what's happening. And so just to show you guys, okay, let's take a look at this. This is, if you guys can see it, this is a recent document from Asari, June 17, 2025. Flare expanding XRP's role in DeFi. And I'm not going to touch on every single point here, but it says here, As XRP's market presence continues to grow, Flare's technology offers a pathway to unlock its dormant value and integrate it into the broader DeFi landscape. This potential has attracted attention from both retail and institutional players. As we come down here, it does talk about XRP's DeFi moment, where XRP Fi enabled, by Flare's F assets opens up a world of possibilities for XRP holders, where now they can use their XRP for lending, for borrowing, for yield farming, for liquidity provisioning, and other DeFi activities without sacrificing custody of their underlying assets. For institutions, XRP Fi offers a way to generate yield on their XRP, which have traditionally been held as static assets. For retail users, XRP Fi democratizes access to financial services that were previously unavailable to XRP holders, and it allows individual investors to participate in the same yield generating activities as larger players and earn returns on their XRP holdings rather than simply speculating on price appreciation. Do you see how powerful that statement is right there? Instead of just speculating that price is going to go up or down or whatever the case may be, just pay yourself, right? That's what we're all here to do. So here it talks about liquid staking coming soon, which is the exact strategy in which we are just simply talking about, where users will be able to deposit FXRP into Firelight's launch vault, which mints STXRP, a one-to-one backed exchange rate. This is an ERC token that is fully transferable and enables participation in DEXs, lending protocols, and other yield generating applications. This system will allow XRP users to benefit from staking yield without losing liquidity and unlocks new utility for XRP and DeFi. All right, so I'll cut it there. If you have anything, Aqua, Kev, to go on and talk about these types of strategies, go ahead.
I mean, I'm just thinking about it right now. Definitely not financial advice, but that same breakdown that we just did, tokenizing the house and all that, you could technically squeeze more yield out by putting liquid staking in the very front, your very first step, and then follow all those steps. So like you're squeezing out yield on the liquid staking part, and then you're squeezing out yield on the equity liquidity of your house. So, but not financial advice. Those are a lot of steps, but I just want to throw out there because there's really no, like, you know what I mean? Like you can get creative with this, you know what I mean? So
So maybe like liquid stake. So liquid stake your XRP, then take that liquid stake token, lend out that liquid stake token, borrow against that, and then there's an additional yield at the beginning of that whole entire process, is what you're saying.
facts,
Yeah, that's
facts. Or
massive.
you could swap it for another because there's no rules that you have to keep that liquid asset. You swap that liquid asset for another asset that's going to get you, the best borrowing lending APR, and then run it that way. So there's
Yep.
really, you know what I mean? There's so much creativity that you could, if you're, I mean, that eventually we'll probably program an AI agent to run all that shit for us. You know what I'm saying?
No, we will in this community program an AI agent to do all this for us
I
for a
know,
fact.
I know, I know.
For a fact. It might not happen this year, but trust and believe when it becomes available, we're going to be at the freaking fore. I mean, look at us. We're already in the AI agent space. Ain't nobody talking about AI agents. We hosted a call the other day talking about bot creation. We got a freaking coder in this community that actually understands code and understands cybersecurity and all that stuff. He's sitting in on the call right now, probably smiling at his computer screen, right? Look at him, Carlton, just unmuted. Look at him. Yep, see? So we're at the forefront of this stuff, guys and gals. It's pretty crazy. So pretty much to wrap this up, let's zoom out. When you sell into fiat, which is again, I'm not saying is bad if you're going to have a plan, have a strategic plan on how you can get that fiat to work for you in the terms of stable coins or investing it somewhere else that's going to generate yield and not turn into a liability for you. You don't want money coming out in this new future. You want money coming in. You want cash flow. That's the goal here. You lose exposure to future gains. You realize capital gains tax depending on your jurisdiction, which is very important. Okay, because when you sell out of your position, you get hit with taxes. If you participate in DeFi, you don't get hit with capital gains tax. Okay. And most importantly, you re-enter a system where your purchasing power drops every single year. Carlton, go ahead.
Yeah, we need somebody on the formulas, right? Like the formulas for all these different strategies. Meaning, if we were to draw out the steps, there's a space between each node on that line, right? And we need to be able to identify a favorable position on each step along that path of putting our assets to work, putting our liquidity into action, right? For profit. So I think that's something to be thought about, with the brilliant minds on this call. Maybe that's something we just talk about along the way, just formulating how we can look at the formula and be like, what's the status of that strategy right now? Does it have a weak, first leg or second leg or something? Then we just start talking about how we articulate these concepts, right? So just throwing that out there.
I agree. I agree. When like I said, as time progresses, we'll be at the forefront of all that and be able to really truly. And I think too, like just look at the past year that the Wealth 28 Club has been alive and kind of what we created. Um, we're pretty much we front ran the institutions who now just for the first time this year are like really truly coming out and saying, hey, we're going to start participating in liquidity providing and lending and borrowing and all this stuff. And now a lot of us who understand these things, these mechanics, albeit you might not be fully profitable yet, you're aware and you're educated about them. And so as the ecosystem continues to mature, so is your approach, so is your understanding, and so is your strategy. And that's the important part, is not getting left behind here. You might not be making thousands of dollars in ETH like Kevin is, right? But, look at him smile. But that's not the important part. The important part is that you know that it's possible to participate in that strategy and that you're willing to learn that. And that's the important piece there. Because once you can apply motivation with proper knowledge and information, that's when it becomes powerful. So we'll wrap this up here where DeFi flips the script. It gives you tools to earn from your assets without selling. It gives you the ability to compound returns instead of locking in losses to inflation. And it gives you a path to build generational wealth and not just quick gains. And that is where the mindset shift comes in. So we're not here to attack anyone promoting exit strategies because there's 1,000 different ones. There's 1,000 different ways in which we can operate in this space effectively and efficiently. We're just here to expand the conversation. And the new financial paradigm is not about exit strategies. It is about asset utilization. I cannot stress that enough. So to full circle this, why I even brought this post up from this individual here, it's because it's not about an exit strategy. Why would you want to exit a market that we know hundreds of trillions of dollars is about to come in? Again, think about that. Go at night when you're sleeping and stop thinking you want to exit crypto. You do not want to exit crypto, people. If you exit crypto, there's a possibility that you might fucking drop the ball and not be able to re-enter because you get what I'm saying. It's
Don't
more
fuck it up.
risky. Yeah, it's more risky to exit crypto right now than to be in crypto. Okay? And when you understand that, it does take a mindset shift and a little bit of elbow grease, but trust and believe it is possible. And it's going to be possible with people in our community. And we're going to continue to be at the forefront of bringing this to people's attention. So if you're serious about building wealth in crypto, I'll end it here. It's time to start thinking like the institutions are. Like the institutions, we are front running for a fact. We've had confirmation from DTCC representatives that we are front running the institutions. They do not sell. The vast majority of institutions hodl. Go look at the central bank balance sheets. What do? They accumulate gold and they stick it in fucking bunkers for decades. They're literally on the cusp of doing that same thing with digital assets like XRP, like Bitcoin, with all these treasury announcements, with all these freaking government-backed baskets of currencies. They will not be selling a portion of their digital assets, and it would behoove you guys to start thinking the same way. Because I can guarantee you in the near future, we're going to see central banks participating in DeFi, lending, providing liquidity, borrowing against their assets to buy more real estate properties, to then go and tokenize those real estate properties. Everything that we're talking about here in this call right now, banks will be doing and participating in if they're not already. Okay. So DeFi has now made that all possible for us as retail investors to do. Do not exit, evolve. Use your crypto, earn yield, leverage smart strategies. The future, that this is going to be the future of finance, right? So that's my spiel for today. I'll leave the floor open for questions and just open general comments and discussions. But yeah,
Yeah, you guys need to use DeFi to earn you more assets. The more assets you have, the more money you'll have. That's how I think of things. That's why I don't look at the value of crypto. I just look at how many assets can I obtain before the institutions come in and kick and hockey stick this thing.
I agree. So we'll open the floor to conversation if you guys have anything. If not, we'll chuck it up there for the weekend. I got a couple of more things to say before we hop off, but I'll leave the floor since we're on this kind of topic of DeFi and whatnot. If you guys have anything, if you guys are watching this as a recording real fast, though, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up and then subscribe. I haven't decided if I'm going to upload this as a YouTube video yet, but if you are, and I do, make sure you guys do that. We do appreciate the love and the support. And just again, not attacking anybody. We're just here to try to present awareness to people that we are in this midst of a transformation, and so many people are lacking education right now. It's really, truly sad, guys and gals. I'm not gonna lie. It's really, truly sad that other community members, other influencers in the crypto space haven't caught on yet, and they have hundreds of thousands of followers, and they are still just preaching, "Oh, $1,000 XRP, guys, it's coming." But like, there's nothing there. After that, there's nothing there. How do they plan to survive? Who knows? Maybe they'll catch on one day. Godspeed to them at the end of the day. So yeah, I'll leave the floor open for a second. Then if not, we'll end it on a little tiny note, and then we'll go off for the weekend.